throughout history, black Africans have been painted as many things: primitive, violent, uncivilized. But there's a truth history often tries to bury. They were never hated because they were weak. They were feared because they were powerful. Long before colonialism, Africa was home to empires that rivaled, and in many cases surpassed those of Europe. The Mali Empire, under Mansa Musa, was so wealthy and advanced that his pilgrimage to Mecca disrupted entire economies. Timbuktu was a center of learning when much of Europe was still emerging from the Dark Ages. Africans were trading, writing, building, teaching, living in complex societies with systems of law, spirituality, and art. They were scholars, architects, spiritual leaders, and kings. So, when Europeans set foot on the continent, they weren't discovering a new world. They were intruding on a world they couldn't control. So why, when Europeans set foot on the continent, was the narrative so different? Because to colonize someone, you first have to convince yourself they're less than human. But Africa didn't look like a land of inferiors. It looked like a land of equals, of threats. Black Africans were seen as a threat for many reasons, and not just physical ones.
If you want to go to Nigeria to go and try some business opportunities or anything of that sort, wake up in the morning and go. Why are the Europeans allowed to do it? They eat breakfast in Milan in Italy and go and sleep in Paris without a hassle. And we are not allowed because the unity of Africa is a threat to certain people. Say, if we find a foreigner working here at Kaya FM, he didn't employ himself. He was employed by the bosses here. So you cannot fight this one. You have to fight the bosses that we must be given a preference, which we agree with. But let's not allow them to make us fight amongst ourselves because they enjoy that. They hire foreigners and then they come to you and say, you can't get jobs because foreigners have taken jobs all over. But who employs these people? It's the same people who are saying foreigners have taken jobs.
Number 1, a threat to white supremacy. Let's call it what it is. Colonialism wasn't just about land or labor. It was about control, and control is easier when people believe the lie that one race is inherently superior. But Africa shattered that illusion because its people didn't fit the story colonizers needed to tell. They saw cities made of stone. They saw communities with systems of law, medicine, agriculture, trade. They saw intelligence, confidence, self-sufficiency. And that was a problem. Because if Africa was powerful, then white supremacy wasn't truth. It was propaganda. If Africans were equal or worse, thriving then, the entire colonial project unraveled. So, the narrative had to change. Suddenly, Africa was the dark continent. Its people were painted as backward, godless, in need of saving. But that wasn't about the truth. That was about justification. What do you do when your entire system is based on the lie that you're better, more intelligent, more capable? But the people you're trying to conquer are living proof that you're not? You erase them. You demonize them. You enslave them. Colonial powers built their empires on African backs. They stole gold, diamonds, oil, rubber, people. And to sleep at night, they told themselves they were civilizing savages. But the real savagery was denying an entire continent its dignity. Number 2, a threat, because of physical prowess. From the warriors of the Dahomey Kingdom to the Zulu under Shaka, Black Africans were known for their strength, stamina, and strategic brilliance. In battle, they were fierce, organized, and relentless. This terrified European forces, many of whom were outmatched in raw physicality and endurance. The transatlantic slave trade didn't just happen by chance. Africans were targeted because they were seen as the strongest physically and mentally fit to endure forced labor. But that strength also meant they were resistant. Not just in body, but in spirit. Slave revolts happened, and they were led by people who refused to be broken. Every time an enslaved African rose up, every time one refused to kneel, the system trembled. because it proved something very uncomfortable to the oppressor. You can chain the body, but you can't conquer the soul. Number 3. A threat because of intellectual power. Let's be clear, Africa is not just a land of physical might. It's a continent of thinkers. The ancient libraries of Timbuktu held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts on astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and law. African spiritual systems contained profound wisdom about balance, energy, and harmony with nature. Oral traditions kept deep history alive, passed down with precision through generations. This intellect wasn't just different from European thought, it often challenged it. And that's a problem when you're trying to portray a people as inferior. So Africans were labeled illiterate, their languages dismissed, their philosophies erased. But the truth always finds a way back. Number 4. A threat because of cultural resilience. Despite centuries of attempted erasure, African culture has survived. And not just survived, thrived. From the drum patterns in Brazilian samba, to the rhythms of hip-hop, to the soul of gospel, to the sway of reggae, African culture is in the DNA of the modern world. And here's the thing. Culture is power. It unites, it resists, it endures. And for colonial systems trying to assimilate or destroy Black identity, the fact that African culture wouldn't die? That was terrifying. Number 5. A threat because of unbreakable identity. Perhaps the greatest threat Black Africans posed was this. They never forgot who they were. Even when names were stripped, even when religions were outlawed, even when children were taken, African identity endured. Through story, through song, through rebellion, through spirit. This unbreakable sense of self was a direct threat to systems built on dehumanization because it showed the lie. Africans were never broken. They were bending the world to remember them. Number 6. The legacy of the fear. The fear of Black power didn't die with slavery. It evolved. Today, we see it in racial profiling, in mass incarceration, in economic exclusion. Black children are disciplined more harshly. Black workers are paid less. Black neighborhoods are over-policed. Why? Because society still hasn't come to terms with a simple truth. When Black people thrive, the systems built on their oppression start to shake. So the threat remains, not because Black people are dangerous, but because their very existence challenges the lie of white dominance. Number 7. Black excellence isn't new. It's ancient. Here's the part many don't want to admit. Black excellence is not a modern invention. It's not a new wave. It's not the result of inclusion or diversity initiatives. It is ancestral. It's in the pyramids. It's in the kingdoms. It's in the art, the medicine, the music, the resistance. From Imhotep to Malcolm X. From Nzinga to Nina Simone. From the shores of Ghana to the streets of Harlem, Black brilliance has always been here. And every time it rises, systems built on lies tremble. Why were Black Africans feared? Because they were strong, because they were smart, because they were self-sufficient, because they were unconquerable in spirit, because they were everything the world tried to deny. Today, we are seeing the continuation of that fear in new forms. Racism, police brutality, economic exclusion. But behind every act of suppression is the same root cause: fear. The world is still scared of a Black planet, scared of Black excellence, scared of what happens when Black people stand tall, united, unapologetic, and in power. And maybe, just maybe, they should be. Because Black isn't just beautiful, it's powerful. It's enduring, it's revolutionary, and that's always been the real threat. The fear isn't of Black violence, it's of Black visibility, Black unity, Black power. Because when Black people fully realize who they are, when they walk in their truth, their history, their divinity, they don't just survive, they redefine the world, and maybe, just maybe, that's the most powerful threat of all.